Dan Lennington from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty is going to talk about all the successes that just Will has had in fighting back on DEI. But Dan, with all Will's successes, these kinds of stories keep popping up. You mentioned offhandedly that there was a Wisconsin girl in kindergarten who was forced to answer an interrogation about her white privilege in class. So how do we stop this without having to constantly go back to court?
Yeah, I think that the best way to stop this in Wisconsin is through the legislative process to get strong majorities in both houses of conservatives who believe in free speech and believe in educating children in the proper way. And also next spring, we'll probably have a chance to pass what's called the Equality Amendment, which is a state constitutional amendment that will expressly prohibit this type of DEI in state and local governments. And yeah, it is pervasive. This little girl in California was forced to apologize. She was 7 years old. She was forced to apologize in front of everybody. The mom said she was confused, and she actually went to the classroom again and apologized again to the little girl. And the other girl was confused about why she was apologizing for saying that all lives matter. Now, little kids do have a freedom of speech, and I expect this ruling will be overturned by the Court of Appeals or the U.S. Supreme Court. But governments can't discriminate based on content, and to allow one message, Black Lives Matter, but not to allow another message to be said, which is all lives matter. So yeah, it's not just California. Wisconsin, we see it all the time in K-12. We see it, especially the most dangerous place we see it in K-12 in Wisconsin is in the area of school discipline. So that's a really dangerous spot, and we have new data from DPI on that issue.
Yeah, we do. We have new data that shows 60% of kids are identifying as either having anxiety, depression, and or suicidal thoughts, with almost 20% of them actually having a plan, having created a plan, at least in their head, to kill themselves. That's insane. That's where we are when you have essentially taught kids complete confusion and to hate themselves. But the Equality Amendment, I think that's because I'm not sure we're going to get strong conservative majorities in the legislature with a governor who doesn't, completely hate the very concept of children learning critical thinking. But the Equality Amendment is something that every state should be pursuing, because that gets that. I mean, you don't have to worry about the law. You don't have to worry about a Supreme Court overturning it, right?
Right. That's exactly right. What you have would be an amendment that would prohibit state, local, county governments, state officials from using race as a factor in any administration of government, whether it's education or any other part of government, benefits or things like that. And so, one of the biggest things we have that Tony Evers runs that a lot of people don't know about, I tell this to legislators all the time and they seem surprised about it, is that Tony Evers runs a $200 million supplier diversity program, which is a program that doles out $200 million every year to businesses that provide services to the state of Wisconsin. So you think, state of Wisconsin buys, $1 or $2 billion worth of services every year, and Tony Evers has taken about 10 to 20% of this and set it aside for minority-owned businesses. And so those businesses get to compete on an unequal footing. If you're a business and you make a contract or a bid to get some work from the state of Wisconsin, if you're a minority, they discount your bid 5%. So you get a 5% bonus against other white-owned companies. And so that would go out the door under the Equality Amendment. Also, a lot of the shenanigans at UW, we still see a ton of DEI at UW going on, especially in the area of the medical college. And that's another apart from, discipline policies at K-12, another very dangerous issue where lives are on the line is with health equity. This idea that when a doctor sees you, that doctor should be mostly worried about whether you as a white person are getting better care or having better outcomes than a minority person. not treating you as a patient and an individual
Wow.
symptoms.
So
But
now UW has
yeah.
you're saying UW has adopted that now, the policy of essentially discriminating in regard to healthcare if you're, against anyone who is
Yeah.
non-minority?
Yeah, I actually posted on my X account a couple of days ago the admissions policy for UW Medical School, and if you are an aspiring doctor and you want to become a doctor at, for the University of Wisconsin, you have to pledge that you will uphold DEI expressly. You have to pledge you hold DEI and health equity, and that you pledge that you will, when you treat patients, you will be very concerned about health disparities and differences among populations, to the expense of the patient who's sitting right in front of you, who has individual symptoms and has individual needs. This is a top-down thing. I mean, the Biden administration has passed a rule where people are getting kidneys based on race. They have changed the way kidneys are given to kidney transplant patients. We have seen heart patients being treated differently based on race, and this has no basis in science. Your race, unless it's a genetic disorder, your race does not make you more or less likely to have heart disease. Those are just non-scientific proxies, and it's just a woke mindset that your skin color is a sort of magic talisman that controls all aspects of your life, and it's really dangerous. I mean, if the older people who are going to the doctor a lot, they got to be concerned. Does my doctor treat me as an individual, or are they treating me in such a way as to reduce some advantage that maybe a white person may have over
That's concerning, Dan. It's very concerning because we don't know how this plays out. We don't know if this means we're just going to draft in doctors like UCLA Medical did, who can't pass the basic exams to become physicians. We don't know if this means don't treat someone because they're white in order to try to reduce their positive health outcomes so that we can reduce disparity. There's all kinds of ugly ways that this goes down. And the University of Wisconsin-Madison just adopted this.
We have a presidential candidate, Vicki, who says that there should be no such thing as private health insurance, that all health insurance should be run through the government. And so if you like how the post office works, you're going to love this. But what you're going to love is all these bureaucrats in Washington deciding whether your treatment that you're getting for your cancer or your heart disease or your cardiovascular issue, whether maybe the people in other areas of the country of different races don't have it as well. So maybe we're going to ratchet down the number of doctors that they have in Brookfield or in Sun Prairie or in other places, because they need to ratchet up doctors in other places to reduce these health disparities. Or maybe the good doctors are going to be shipped to certain areas based on race, and other people are going to be left with leftover doctors. I mean, it's command and control economy, and that's what government-run healthcare is, and that's what one party actually advocates for.
Kamala Harris overtly said. She said not only does she want to get rid of all private health insurance and turn everybody into a client of the government with regard to their health, which we have seen wreak havoc internationally. She also says she believes in equity, in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the equity part of it is about making outcomes the same. And if outcomes can't be made the same by changing the rules, then outcomes will be made to change and made the same forcibly. And in medicine, Dan, that will mean you don't treat white people because you will save white people, and we need to reduce the white-black disparity. It will necessarily come to that because it has to.
Yeah, it's we call it racial balancing. Racial balancing. So and it's not.
We need more dead white people.
Yeah, it's just the outcomes should be equal. If there's 12% black people, then 12% of a benefit should go to the black people no matter what. And whatever racial group you're in, you have to have a racial balance. And that works in healthcare. That's their view in criminal justice. That's why prosecutors are not putting certain people in prison, because it would upset the racial balance. That's why certain kids are not punished in schools for beating up their teachers because it would upset the racial balance. And so that's why government contracts are being given out to certain businesses, because it's upsetting the racial balance. The left and the progressives want to balance everything according to raw population numbers. And if one group is getting less than they should, to each according to their needs, from each according to their ability. So I mean, this is Marxism, and it's racial Marxism, and it's infecting
Yes.
all areas of our culture right now.
You have won a number of cases, over 50, under the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty Equality Project. Big cases, reining in the Biden administration's racism with regard to, farming loans and things like this. Is it making a dent? At the very least, it does seem to be making a dent in terms of how overt institutions are willing to be, but they don't seem to be looking to stop in any meaningful way.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have had great success, and we started really at the top. We started with the Biden administration, and the Washington Post had a great write-up of us a couple of days ago, and said that because of the work that we are doing, the Biden administration has frankly stopped defending their affirmative action and DEI programs in court. They stopped defending what was called the Minority Business Development Agency. They've stopped defending a lot of other programs worth tens of billions of dollars. And what that tells me is that we just need to file more lawsuits. We got a lawsuit planned for August against the Biden administration. Hopefully, it's our 12th lawsuit against the Biden administration. And so we feel like we are running down the field, and we're just going to run until we get tackled, because the Biden administration's apparently waved the white flag, and that's what they've been telling reporters at the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post. Is they said, we can't even defend these programs anymore. So we're going to find them. We're going to take them to court. We're going to hold them accountable, and they're going to end up paying our attorney's fees. They were ordered a couple of months ago to pay us $360,000, and that check should be coming in the mail any day now. And so we will keep pushing at this Biden-Harris administration to dismantle all of their racial equity and health equity programs as much as possible, and hopefully we'll have a new president who can go farther to dismantle the equity at the federal level.
will-law.org. Every single $5 donation actually helps in this effort. You don't charge your clients. You guys are doing fantastic work. will-law.org, and Dan Lennington on the program today. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vicki.